The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Jinha stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the EDF Resilience, watching as every screen and holographic display suddenly flickered. The same transmission appeared everywhere at once on military channels, civilian networks, and personal devices across Earth and all human colonies. "People of Earth," began the alien voice, speaking perfect English with an unsettling lack of emotion. "This is High Commander Quan of the Galactic Council. Your species has been evaluated and found wanting. Your aggressive expansion, resource consumption, and military development pose an unacceptable risk to galactic stability." Jinha's weathered face remained calm as he listened. At 53 years old, he had spent 3 decades in Earth's defense force, rising through the ranks during humanity's first cautious steps into the wider galaxy. He had expected this day might come. "Humanity has 24 standard cycles to surrender all military assets and submit to Council authority," continued Quan. "Failure to comply will result in immediate sanction. This is not negotiable." The message ended abruptly. The bridge fell silent. "Sir?" Lieutenant Heron broke the silence, her fingers already flying across her tactical station. "I'm tracking 317 Council warships that just appeared at the edge of our solar system. They're holding position just beyond Neptune's orbit." Jinha nodded slowly. "Show me." The main display shifted to a real-time view of the Council armada. The alien ships were beautiful in their waist-sleek, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. Each one was at least 3 times the size of Earth's largest vessel. "They're not approaching yet," Harin noted. "Just ... "Of course they're waiting," Jinha said. "They expect us to panic, to fight among ourselves, to surrender." A small smile began to form at the corners of his mouth. "Sir?" Harin looked confused. "The Council fleet outguns us at least 20-1. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Jinha turned to face the bridge crew. 20 men and women looked back at him, their faces showing varying degrees of fear and determination. "How many of you have studied Earth history?" he asked. Most hands went up. "Then you know this isn't the first time humanity has faced impossible odds." Jinha walked to the center of the bridge. "The Council thinks they understand us because they've observed us for 30 years. They've watched our broadcasts, studied our technology, and met with our diplomats." He shook his head. "But they've never truly seen humans fight when our backs are against the wall." Jinha pressed a button on his command console. "This is Admiral Jinha to all Earth Defense Force units. Battle stations, initiate Protocol Lazarus." Throughout the solar system, hidden installations began to power up. On Mars, beneath the dusty surface of Olympus Mons, massive hangar doors that had never appeared on any official blueprint slowly opened. In the asteroid belt, mining operations suddenly transformed, revealing weapon systems concealed within ordinary-looking equipment. On Europa, beneath the ice, submarine carriers began launching toward predetermined coordinates. "Send a message to the President," Jinha ordered. "Tell her it's time to activate the Sentinel program." Harin's eyes widened. "The Sentinel program? But sir, that's just a theoretical research initiative. It's not operational." Jinha's smile grew slightly wider. "That's what we wanted everyone to believe." On Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, 5,000 men and women received the activation code they had been training for in secret. Each had volunteered for experimental procedures that pushed the boundaries of human capability. Some had enhanced neural interfaces that allowed direct communication with machines. Others had modified cellular structures that could withstand extreme conditions. All of them represented humanity's insurance policy of force designed to fight enemies with superior technology. "The Council is broadcasting again," reported the communications officer. Jinha nodded. On screen, High Commander Quan appeared once more. "We have detected unusual energy signatures throughout your system. Any attempt to resist will only result in greater suffering for your people. Be reasonable. Your species is young and undisciplined, but you may yet find a place within the galactic community under proper supervision." Jinha studied the alien's face. Quan looked almost human, except for the silver patterns that traced across his blue-tinted skin and his entirely black eyes. The council consisted of 17 advanced species, each having achieved spaceflight thousands of years before humans had invented the wheel. They think we're children, Jinha said quietly. They think we'll be grateful for their guidance. Aren't we outmatched? Asked a young officer at the navigation station. Everything we know about council technology suggests we can't win a direct confrontation. Everything they know about human history should tell them we don't surrender. Jinha replied, not when it matters. Not when our freedom is at stake, he turned to Harin. What's the status of the lunar defense grid? Online but not visible to their scans, she answered. Their quantum camouflage is holding. They still think our moon is just a rock. Jinha nodded with satisfaction. For 15 years, humanity had been hollowing out portions of the moon, building shipyards and weapon platforms within its crust. The project had consumed nearly 30% of Earth's combined GDP, all hidden in black budgets and civilian space initiatives. Sir, Harin said, her voice suddenly urgent, we're detecting movement from the Council fleet. 10 vessels have broken formation and are accelerating toward Earth. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours. They're sending a demonstration force, Jinha said. They want to show us their power before the deadline expires. He straightened his uniform. Prepare my shuttle. I need to get to Luna Command. What should we tell the Council? Asked the communications officer. Jinha thought for a moment. Nothing in words. Open a direct visual channel to High Commander Kun. The officer worked at his station. Channel open, sir. You're transmitting. Jinha looked directly into the camera. He said nothing. He simply smiled, the calm, confident smile of someone who knew something his opponent didn't. After 10 seconds, he nodded to cut the transmission. Sir? Harin looked puzzled. That was our response? Just ... a smile? Jinha headed toward the exit. Humans have a saying, Lieutenant. Actions speak louder than words in 24 hours. The Council will learn what that means. As his shuttle departed for the moon, Jinha watched Earth growing smaller below him. The blue planet seemed so fragile from space, so easy to destroy. But appearances could be deceiving. The Council had ordered humanity to surrender. Earth's response was a smile, and behind that smile was the most dangerous force in the galaxy, humans who refused to kneel. High Commander Quan stared at the frozen image on the main screen of the Council's command ship. The human admiral's face, wearing nothing but a slight smile, filled the display. What does this mean? Demanded Counselor Rex, his scaled skin shifting from green to red in agitation. Is this acceptance or defiance? Quan studied the human's expression. In his 30 years of observing Earth, he had learned to read some human facial expressions, but this one puzzled him. It wasn't fear, it wasn't anger. It was something else, something that made him deeply uncomfortable. It's confidence, Quan said finally. They're not afraid of us. The command center fell silent. Around the circular table sat representatives from all 17 species of the Galactic Council. For 10,000 years, the Council had maintained order among the stars. When new species achieved faster than light travel, the Council evaluated them. Some were welcomed as junior members. Others, deemed too aggressive or unstable, were contained or supervised. Humans were supposed to be in the second category. Impossible, said the Vexery delegate, her crystalline form glittering under the lights. Their technology is primitive. Our scans show their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and crude energy beams. They have no quantum shielding, no gravity manipulation, no neural networks. And yet, Quan replied, they do not seem concerned about our ultimatum. He turned to the tactical display showing the Sol system. The 10 ships he had sent toward Earth continued their approach. The rest of the armada held position beyond Neptune. Perhaps they don't understand the situation, suggested Counselor Jack Morrison, the youngest member of the Council. Unlike the others, Morrison had advocated for a more diplomatic approach to Earth. Humans are known for their optimism. Maybe they think we're bluffing. Quan shook his head. No, I've studied their military history extensively. Humans understand war better than most species in the galaxy. He accessed the historical archives, projecting images of human conflicts throughout their bloody history. The other council members watched with a mixture of disgust and fascination. Look at their pattern, Quan explained. When technologically superior forces invaded their territories, humans rarely surrendered. Instead, they adapted. They developed guerrilla tactics. They used their knowledge of local terrain. They accepted massive casualties to wear down their enemies. But this is different, Rex argued. We're not fighting on their territory. We're fighting in space where our technological advantage is absolute. Quan zoomed in on Earth itself. Are we? This is their home system? They've had decades to prepare it for defense. Our scans show minimal orbital defenses, the Vexry pointed out. 47 combat platforms, all using outdated technology. What if they're hiding something? Quan asked quietly. The council chamber erupted in dismissive sounds from various species. Hiding what? Rex laughed. Our sensors can detect a micrometeoroid from a light year away. Nothing escapes our notice. Quan wasn't convinced. Something about the human admiral's smile bothered him deeply. It reminded him of an ancient human military concept he had studied: strategic deception. I recommend we delay the advance force, Quan said. Something doesn't feel right. Feel? Rex scoffed. We don't make decisions based on feelings. Our analysis indicates a 99.7% probability of human surrender or defeat within 3 days. The council voted 16-1 in favor of continuing the operation. Only Quan voted against it. Very well, Quan said, accepting the decision. But I suggest we approach with caution. 6 hours later, the advance force of 10 council warships entered Earth orbit. Each ship was 2 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could reduce a city to ash in seconds. No response from Earth Defense Forces, reported the captain of the lead ship. Their orbital platforms are tracking us but not powering weapons. On the council command ship, Quan watched the feed with growing unease. This isn't right. They should be doing something. Perhaps they're being sensible for once, Rex said. Humans may be aggressive, but they're not stupid. The advance force spread out, taking positions above major Earth cities, a standard intimidation tactic that had worked on dozens of other species. Sir, said a sensor operator on the lead ship, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from Earth's moon. The moon? The captain frowned. It's a dead rock? Our surveys confirm that. Nevertheless, the transmission cut off abruptly. On the tactical display, the lead council ship vanished. What happened? Rex demanded, rising from his seat. Before anyone could answer, a second ship disappeared from the display. Then a third. We've lost contact with the advance force, reported a communications officer. All 10 ships are no longer responding. Quan felt a chill run down his spine. Show me the moon. The display shifted to show Earth's natural satellite. At first, it appeared normal, a gray, cratered sphere. Then, as they watched, portions of the surface began to move. Massive sections of the lunar crust slid apart, revealing what lay beneath. That's not possible, Rex whispered. The moon's surface rippled as hundreds of hangar doors opened. From within the hollowed-out satellite emerged warships, human warships, but unlike any they had seen before. They were smaller than council vessels, but moved with incredible speed and precision. How did we miss this? The Vexery demanded. Our surveys were exactly what they wanted us to see, Quan realized. They've been preparing for this moment for years. The tactical display updated as more data came in. The 10 council ships hadn't been destroyed. They had been disabled by some unknown weapon that targeted their propulsion and communication systems. We're receiving a transmission from Earth, announced the communications officer. Admiral Eugena's face appeared on screen again. This time he wasn't just smiling. Greetings, Council, he said calmly. I believe we have your attention now. What have you done? Rex demanded. We've simply revealed a small portion of our actual defense capabilities, Jinha replied. Your Advance force is disabled but intact. Their crews are unharmed. We're not monsters. Quan stepped forward. How did you conceal this from our scans? Jinha's smile widened slightly. Humans have always been good at hiding things, Commander Quan, especially from those who underestimate us. The display split to show the disabled council ships being towed by smaller human vessels toward the moon. Your 24-hour deadline is meaningless, Jinha continued. We will not surrender today, tomorrow, or ever. However, we are willing to discuss peaceful coexistence as equals. Equals? Rex sputtered. Your species is barely 1,000 years into its civilization. Age doesn't determine worth, Counselor, Jinha replied. Actions do, and our first action is mercy. Your advance force will be returned to you intact once. We've concluded our discussions. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. This changes everything, Morrison said finally. If they've hidden this much, what else might they be capable of? Quan looked at the tactical display, where hundreds of human ships now patrolled near the moon. The rest of the council fleet remained beyond Neptune, suddenly seeming less imposing. I believe, Quan said slowly, we may have seriously misjudged humanity. The human admiral's smile made perfect sense now. It wasn't arrogance or defiance, it was the look of someone who knew they held the winning hand all along. Captain Rex of the Council's elite 7th Strike, Force gripped the arms of his command chair as his ship approached Earth's moon. After the shocking revelation of the lunar base and the disabling of the advance force, the Council had voted to send in their best combat unit to legendary 7th, undefeated in 17 interstellar conflicts. All weapons at full power, Rex ordered. His crew, composed of the finest warriors from across Council space, moved with practiced efficiency. Shields at maximum. No mistakes this time. The 7th consisted of 30 warships, each commanded by veterans who had crushed rebellions and subjugated hostile species across the galaxy. They had never failed a mission. Rex intended to keep that record intact. The humans are hailing us, reported his communications officer. Ignore it, Rex said. No more talking. The time for diplomacy is over. On the main display, the moon grew. Larger, the human ships that had emerged from the lunar hangars were forming a defensive line. Rex studied their formation with professional interest. The ships were arranged in a pattern he didn't recognize from any known combat doctrine. They're not grouping by ship class, he noted. No clear command structure, sloppy. His tactical officer, a veteran of 100 battles, looked less certain. Sir, I'm not sure it's sloppiness. They're positioning in a way that makes targeting priority vessels difficult. Rex dismissed the concern with a wave. It doesn't matter. Our technology advantage is too great. Begin the attack sequence. The 30 Council ships accelerated toward the human defense line. As they closed the distance, Rex expected the humans to break formation, to scatter before the Council's superior firepower. They didn't move. Their holding position, reported the tactical officer, surprise evident in his voice. Then they'll die in position, Rex said coldly. Fire main cannons. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the Council ships, crossing the void toward the human vessels. What happened next defied everything Rex knew about space combat. The human ships didn't try to evade. Instead, as the energy beams approached, their hulls seemed to ripple. The deadly energy washed over them and then reflected back toward the Council fleet. Impossible, Rex shouted as his own weapons fire returned toward his ships. 3 Council vessels were hit by their own beams, their shields flaring and failing. Sir, they're using some kind of reflective field technology, the science officer reported, her voice shaking. It's not in any of our databases. Before Rex could respond, the human ships began to move, not in retreat but in attack. They accelerated. With impossible speed, changing direction in ways that violated the normal laws of inertia. How are they maneuvering like that? Rex demanded. No organic crew could survive those G-forces. As if in answer to his question, a human voice came over the communication system, bypassing their blocks as if they weren't there. This is Admiral Jinha of Earth Defense Force, the calm voice said. Your weapons technology is impressive, Captain Rex, but you're making a fundamental mistake. Rex's blood ran cold. How did the human know his name? How had they broken through the communication security? You assume we fight like you do, Jinha continued. We don't. The human ships were now weaving between the Council vessels, moving too fast and unpredictably for the targeting systems to lock on. Wherever they passed, Council ships lost power or weapons capability. Sir, they're using some kind of localized EMP technology, reported the tactical officer. But it's selective, only affecting certain systems. Rex watched in growing horror as his perfect formation dissolved into chaos. 5 of his ships were already completely disabled, drifting helplessly in space. Fall back, he ordered. Regroup. At position Alpha. But even as he gave the command, he realized something was wrong with his own ship. The engines weren't responding. The weapons were offline. Sir, his second-in-command said quietly, we're being boarded. Rex turned to the internal security feed. The image showed human soldiers moving through his ship. They wore sleek armor that seemed to bend light around them, making them difficult to focus on. They weren't killing his crew, they were systematically disabling equipment and subduing resistance with non-lethal weapons. How did they get past our shields? Rex whispered. The answer came when one of the humans appeared on the bridge. The soldier's helmet retracted, revealing the face of a woman. Her eyes glowed with a subtle blue light. Captain Rex, she said. I am Commander Harin of the Earth Defense Force. Your ship is now under our control. Rex reached for his sidearm but found he couldn't move. Some invisible force held him in place. Don't bother, Harin said. Neural disruptors are already active throughout your ship. What are you? Rex asked, unable to comprehend how humans could possess such technology. Harin smiled slightly. Just humans, Captain. Humans who prepared for this day. She gestured. And the main display activated, showing the battle outside. Or rather, the end of the battle. 25 of Rex's 30 ships were now drifting powerless. The remaining 5 were surrounded, unable to escape. The legendary 7th Strike Force, Harin said. Defeated in less than 15 minutes, without a single casualty on either side. Impressive record broken, I'm afraid. Rex stared at the display in disbelief. This isn't possible. Our intelligence said. Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to see, Harin interrupted. For 30 years, we showed the galaxy what we wanted it to see, a somewhat primitive species just beginning to explore space. She walked around the bridge, examining the Council technology with casual interest. Meanwhile, we studied every piece of alien technology we could get our hands on. We reverse engineered what we could. We improved what we understood. And we developed entirely new approaches to the problems your species solved centuries ago. Why? Rex asked. Why? The deception? Harin looked at him with something like pity. Because the first thing we learned about the Galactic Council was that you categorize species as either useful servants or potential threats. We decided to be neither. The display changed to show Admiral Jinha, now on the command deck of what appeared to be the lunar base. The facility was vast, stretching for kilometers beneath the moon's surface. Captain Rex, Jinha said, your defeat serves a purpose. It demonstrates to the Council that their assumptions about humanity were wrong. Now we can begin real negotiations as equals. The Council will never accept this, Rex said defiantly. They'll send the main fleet, thousands of ships. You can't possibly... Look again at your tactical display, Captain, Jinha suggested. Rex. Turn to see new data appearing. All across the solar system, hidden human installations were revealing themselves. Bases on Mars, weapons platforms disguised as asteroids, fleets emerging from the clouds of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn. This is our home, Jinha said simply. We've had decades to prepare it for defense. Your main fleet would face the same fate as your strike force defeat without destruction. We don't want to destroy you, Captain Rex. We just want to be left alone. Rex looked at the human forces now visible throughout the solar system. The Council had completely misjudged humanity's capabilities and resolve. The Council ordered us to surrender, Harin said, watching Rex's face. Our answer was a smile. Now you understand why. For the first time in his long military career, Captain Rex felt something he had never experienced before, fear of what humans might be capable of next. Commander Harin stood at the edge of a vast underground chamber beneath the Himalayan mountains. Around her, 5,000 men and women prepared for what might be the most important battle in human history. Despite the victories in space, everyone knew the Council would not give up easily. They would send ground forces next. "Status report," Harin said to her second-in-command. "All Sentinel units are ready," he replied. "The Council dropships will enter atmosphere in approximately 20 minutes." Harin nodded and walked among her troops. These weren't ordinary soldiers. Each person in this chamber was part of the Sentinel program, humanity's secret weapon against technologically superior enemies. 10 years ago, Harin had been one of the first volunteers. She remembered the day she signed the papers agreeing to experimental procedures that would change her forever. The scientists had been honest about the risks. Many candidates didn't survive the process. Those who did were transformed. She touched the back of her neck, feeling the small bump under her skin where the neural interface connected directly to her brain. It allowed her to process information faster than any normal human to control advanced weapons with just a thought, and to communicate silently with other Sentinels. "They're coming," she announced, not needing to raise her voice. Every Sentinel in the room received her message directly through their neural links. The main display showed the Council dropships entering Earth's atmosphere, 100 vessels, carrying elite troops from across the galaxy. They were heading from major population centers, following standard Council invasion protocol. "They think this will be easy," Harin said to her troops. "They think humans are soft, that will surrender. When they threaten our cities," she smiled slightly, "let's show them how wrong they are." Hi, Commander." Quan watched from orbit as his ground forces descended toward Earth. After the shocking defeat of Captain Rex's strike force, the Council had debated for hours about how to proceed. In the end, they decided that controlling Earth's population centers would force the humans to negotiate. "The ground forces are the best in Council space," Counselor Rex assured him. "Even if the humans have some technological surprises, they can't match our troops in direct combat. Our soldiers have been bred and trained for war for generations." Quan wasn't so sure. The humans had already proven far more dangerous than anyone expected. But orders were orders. The Council had voted, and he would execute their will. "All dropships have entered atmosphere," reported his tactical officer. "No resistance so far," Quan frowned. "That's concerning, not reassuring." "Sir?" "They let us enter their atmosphere without a fight," Quan explained. "That means they want our troops on the ground. They're planning something." The Council dropship commander felt uneasy as his vessel approached. The human city designated as Landing Zone 1, according to the briefing, this was a place called New Delhi, home to over 30 million humans. "No defensive fire," he reported. To his troops, "Prepare for landing and immediate deployment. Remember, your training secure the government buildings first, then communication centers." His soldiers, tall, armored warriors with 4 arms and enhanced strength, checked their weapons. They had fought on 100 worlds. Humans would be no different. The dropship touched down in a large open area near the city center. The doors opened and the Council troops poured out, weapons ready. They found themselves in an empty park. No resistance, no civilians. No movement at all. "The city appears abandoned," the commander reported. "Sensors detect no human life signs within. 2 kilometers. "Impossible," came the reply from orbit. "Our scans showed normal population density 1 hour ago." The commander sent his troops forward cautiously. They moved through empty streets, past abandoned vehicles and buildings with doors left open, as if the inhabitants had left in a hurry. "It's a trap," the commander realized too late. The ground beneath them suddenly rippled. From hidden compartments in the streets, buildings, and even trees, human soldiers emerged. But they moved with impossible speed, their bodies glowing with faint blue light around their joints and eyes. "What are they?" gasped one of the council soldiers as a human woman leaped 15 meters through the air, landing directly in front of him. It was Harin. Her eyes glowed with the same blue light that outlined her enhanced body. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried easily to all the council troops. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "You have exactly one chance to surrender." The council commander raised his weapon. "We do not surrender to lesser species." Harin sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." What happened next would be reported throughout council space with a mixture of awe and terror. The enhanced humans moved faster than the council soldiers could track. Their weapon-simple-looking rifles and pistols fired projectiles that somehow passed right through the council's advanced armor. Harin moved through the battlefield like water flowing around rocks. When council soldiers fired at her, she seemed to sense the attacks before they happened, shifting her body just enough to avoid being hit. When she struck back, her blows carried force that should have been impossible for her size. Within minutes, half the council force was down, not dead, but immobilized by some kind of neural disruptor that left them conscious but unable to move. "What are you?" the council commander asked as Harin approached him. "Just human," she replied. "But humans who chose to change ourselves to meet the challenge you represent." She gestured to her troops. Each sentinel volunteered for neural enhancement, muscle density augmentation, and reflex acceleration. Some of us can process information 10 times faster than normal humans. Others can lift 3 times their body weight. All of us can interface directly with our technology. The commander stared in horror. "But the ethical implications," Harin cut him off. "When faced with extinction, humans don't debate ethics, we survive. Your council threatened our freedom. Did you really think we would just accept that?" Similar scenes played out across Earth as council dropships landed in major cities. In each location, they found not helpless civilians but waiting sentinels. By the end of the first hour, 70% of the council ground forces had been neutralized in orbit. Quan received the reports with growing dread. "They've modified themselves," he told the council during an emergency session. "The humans have enhanced their bodies and integrated technology directly into their nervous systems." "That's barbaric," gasped the Vexery representative. "No civilized species would alter their own biology so drastically." "That's why they're winning," Quan replied simply. "They don't think like us. They don't have our limitations, physical or philosophical." On the main display, they watched as Harin's forces systematically disabled the remaining council troops. "Not killing them, just rendering them helpless." "They're showing restraint," noted Councillor Morrison. "They could be slaughtering our forces, but they're taking prisoners instead." Quan nodded slowly. "They want us to see, to understand what we're dealing with." A transmission came through from Earth. It was Admiral Jinha again. "Your ground forces have been neutralized," he said without preamble. "All your troops are alive and will remain that way. Now, shall we discuss terms, or do you need further demonstration of humanity's resolve?" The council chamber fell silent. For the first time in 10,000 years, the mighty Galactic Council faced a species they could not easily subjugate, and all because they had misunderstood a simple human smile. Commander Harin stood at the edge of a vast underground chamber beneath the Himalayan mountains. Around her, 5,000 men and women prepared for what might be the most important battle in human history. Despite the victories in space, everyone knew the Council would not give up easily. They would send ground forces next. "Status report," Harin said to her second-in-command. "All Sentinel units are ready," he replied. "The Council dropships will enter atmosphere in approximately 20 minutes." Harin nodded and walked among her troops. These weren't ordinary soldiers. Each person in this chamber was part of the Sentinel program, humanity's secret weapon against technologically superior enemies. 10 years ago, Harin had been one of the first volunteers. She remembered the day she signed the papers agreeing to experimental procedures that would change her forever. The scientists had been honest about the risks. Many candidates didn't survive the process. Those who did were transformed. She touched the back of her neck, feeling the small bump under her skin where the neural interface connected directly to her brain. It allowed her to process information faster than any normal human to control advanced weapons with just a thought, and to communicate silently with other sentinels. "They're coming," she announced, not needing to raise her voice. Every sentinel in the room received her message directly through their neural links. The main display showed the Council dropships entering Earth's atmosphere, 100 vessels, carrying elite troops from across the galaxy. They were heading for major population centers, following standard Council invasion protocol. "They think this will be easy," Harin said to her troops. "They think humans are soft, that will surrender. When they threaten our cities," she smiled slightly, "let's show them how wrong they are." Hi, Commander." Quan watched from orbit as his ground forces descended toward Earth. After the shocking defeat of Captain Rex's strike force, the Council had debated for hours about how to proceed. In the end, they decided that controlling Earth's population centers would force the humans to negotiate. "The ground forces are the best in Council space," Counselor Rex assured him. "Even if the humans have some technological surprises, they can't match our troops in direct combat. Our soldiers have been bred and trained for war for generations." Quan wasn't so sure. The humans had already proven far more dangerous than anyone expected, but orders were orders. The Council had voted, and he would execute their will. "All dropships have entered atmosphere," reported his tactical officer. "No resistance so far," Quan frowned. "That's concerning, not reassuring." "Sir?" "They let us enter their atmosphere without a fight," Quan explained. "That means they want our troops on the ground. They're planning something." The Council dropship commander felt uneasy as his vessel approached. The human city designated as Landing Zone 1, according to the briefing, this was a place called New Delhi, home to over 30 million humans. "No defensive fire," he reported. To his troops, "Prepare for landing and immediate deployment. Remember, your training secure the government buildings first, then communication centers." His soldiers, tall, armored warriors with 4 arms and enhanced strength, checked their weapons. They had fought on 100 worlds. Humans would be no different. The dropship touched down in a large open area near the city center. The doors opened and the Council troops poured out, weapons ready. They found themselves in an empty park. No resistance, no civilians. No movement at all. "The city appears abandoned," the commander reported. "Sensors detect no human life signs within. 2 kilometers. "Impossible," came the reply from orbit. "Our scans showed normal population density 1 hour ago." The commander sent his troops forward cautiously. They moved through empty streets, past abandoned vehicles and buildings with doors left open, as if the inhabitants had left in a hurry. "It's a trap," the commander realized too late. The ground beneath them suddenly rippled. From hidden compartments in the streets, buildings, and even trees, human soldiers emerged. But they moved with impossible speed, their bodies glowing with faint blue light around their joints and eyes. "What are they?" gasped one of the Council soldiers as a human woman leaped 15 meters through the air, landing directly in front of him. It was Harin. Her eyes glowed with the same blue light that outlined her enhanced body. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried easily to all the Council troops. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "You have exactly 1 chance to surrender." The Council commander raised his weapon. "We do not surrender to lesser species." Harin sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." What happened next would be reported throughout Council space with a mixture of awe and terror. The enhanced humans moved faster than the Council soldiers could track. Their weapon-simple-looking rifles and pistols fired projectiles that somehow passed right through the Council's advanced armor. Harin moved through the battlefield, like water flowing around rocks. When Council soldiers fired at her, she seemed to sense the attacks before they happened, shifting her body just enough to avoid being hit. When she struck back, her blows carried force that should have been impossible for her size. Within minutes, half the Council force was down, not dead, but immobilized by some kind of neural disruptor that left them conscious but unable to move. "What are you?" the Council commander asked as Harin approached him. "Just human," she replied. "But humans who chose to change ourselves to meet the challenge you represent." She gestured to her troops. Each sentinel volunteered for neural enhancement, muscle density augmentation, and reflex acceleration. Some of us can process information 10 times faster than normal humans. Others can lift 3 times their body weight. All of us can interface directly with our technology. The commander stared in horror. But the ethical implications, Harin, cut him off. When faced with extinction, humans don't debate ethics, we survive. Your council threatened our freedom. Did you really think we would just accept that? Similar scenes played out across Earth as council dropships landed in major cities. In each location, they found not helpless civilians but waiting sentinels. By the end of the first hour, 70% of the council ground forces had been neutralized in orbit. Quan received the reports with growing dread. They've modified themselves, he told the council during an emergency session. The humans have enhanced their bodies and integrated technology directly into their nervous systems. That's barbaric, gasped the Vexery representative. No civilized species would alter their own biology so drastically. That's why they're winning, Quan replied simply. They don't think like us. They don't have our limitations, physical or philosophical. On the main display, they watched as Harin's forces systematically disabled the remaining council troops. Not killing them, just rendering them helpless. They're showing restraint, noted Councillor Morrison. They could be slaughtering our forces, but they're taking prisoners instead. Quan nodded slowly. They want us to see, to understand what we're dealing with. A transmission came through from Earth. It was Admiral Jinha again. Your ground forces have been neutralized, he said without preamble. All your troops are alive and will remain that way. Now, shall we discuss terms, or do you need further demonstration of humanity's resolve? The council chamber fell silent. For the first time in 10,000 years, the mighty Galactic Council faced a species they could not easily subjugate, and all because they had misunderstood a simple human smile. Jack Morrison floated in zero gravity, his eyes closed as he communicated silently with his ship through the neural interface at the base of his skull. Around him, 300 vessels waited in perfect formation, hidden where no council sensors would think to look inside the chromosphere of the sun itself. For 5 years, Morrison and his crews had trained for this moment. They lived in ships designed to withstand temperatures that would melt conventional materials. Special shields absorbed and redirected the sun's energy, making the fleet invisible to outside detection. The technology had cost trillions to develop, but now it might save humanity. Status report, Morrison said, opening his eyes, his second in command. A woman whose skin glowed faintly from the solar radiation treatments all crew members received, nodded. All ships report ready, Commander. The Council's main fleet has begun moving inward from Neptune's orbit. Morrison smiled slightly. Despite the victories in lunar orbit and on Earth's surface, he had known this moment would come. The Council would not accept defeat easily. They had called in their main armada, over 2,000 warships now heading toward Earth. They think numbers will save them, Morrison said quietly. They still don't understand what they're fighting. He turned to the tactical display showing the approaching Council fleet. They moved in perfect formation, their ships arranged by size and function. Textbook approach to space warfare. Too predictable, Morrison noted. Too rigid in their thinking. He opened a channel to all ships in his hidden fleet. This is Commander Morrison. The time has come for Operation Phoenix. You all know what's at stake. Humanity has survived on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. We've endured ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive tendencies. We will not fall to alien overlords who think they can simply order us to surrender. He paused, looking at the faces of his crewmen and women who had volunteered to live inside the sun, isolated from their families for years, all to prepare for this day. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Execute Phoenix Protocol on my mark. Morrison took a deep breath. Mark. On the Council command ship, Supreme Commander Quan watched as his armada approached Earth. After the humiliating defeats of the advance force and the ground troops, the Council had voted unanimously to commit their full military might. 2,000 ships carrying the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The humans have shown impressive capabilities, Quan admitted to his staff, but they cannot possibly stand against our main fleet. Their lunar base and enhanced soldiers were surprising, but limited in scope. Our analysis suggests they have exhausted their major surprises, added his strategic advisor. The remaining human forces are conventional ships and weapons, no match for our technology. Quan wasn't so sure, but he kept his doubts to himself. Something about this conflict felt wrong. The humans were too confident, too prepared. "Sir," called out his sensor officer suddenly, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the sun." "The sun?" Quan frowned. "Specify. It appears to be... I'm not sure how to describe it. The chromosphere is showing movement patterns that don't match any natural solar phenomena." Quan turned to look at the main display showing the sun. At first he saw nothing unusual. Then, slowly, he noticed disturbances in the fiery surface. Small dark spots moving against the solar flares. "Magnify Sector 7, he ordered. The display zoomed in, and Quan felt his blood run cold. Those weren't sunspots. They were ships. Human ships emerging from within the sun itself. "Impossible," whispered his strategic advisor. "No vessel could survive those temperatures." Yet the evidence was right before their eyes. Hundreds of human warships rising from the sun's chromosphere, their hulls glowing white-hot as they accelerated toward the Council fleet. "All ships battle." "Stations," Quan ordered. "Prepare for..." Before he could finish, the human vessels did something no Council tactician had ever seen. Instead of forming a defensive line or attack formation, they scattered in all directions, each ship seemingly following its own random course. "What are they doing?" demanded Quan's tactical officer. "There's no pattern to their movement." "That is the pattern," Quan realized. "They're making themselves impossible to target as a group." The human ships accelerated to speeds that seemed to defy the laws of physics, changing direction with impossible sharpness. They weaved between the Council vessels, which were still arranged in their perfect, predictable formation. "They're targeting our command ships," reported the tactical officer as the first explosions lit up space. "But how do they know which ones are..." "Because we arrange our fleets the same way every time," Quan said bitterly. "We've become predictable." The human vessels didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, as they passed near Council ships, they released small objects that attached to the hulls. Moments later, those ships lost power, weapons, or communications. "Some kind of targeted EMP technology," reported the engineering officer. "But more sophisticated than anything we've encountered. It's disabling specific systems rather than entire ships." Quan watched in growing horror as his perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Ship after ship lost contact with the fleet command. Without central coordination, the Council vessels began firing randomly, sometimes hitting their own allies in the confusion. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said the communications officer. "It's from the human fleet." And the main display changed to show a human man with short gray hair and eyes that glowed with the same blue light as the enhanced ground troops they had encountered. "This is Commander Jack Morrison of Earth Defense Force Solar Division," the man said calmly. "Your fleet is being systematically disabled. We could destroy your vessels, but that's not our goal. We simply want you to leave our system." "How?" Quan demanded. "How are you doing this? How did you hide inside a star?" Morrison smiled slightly. "Humans have always been good at hiding, Commander. And at surviving in places where we shouldn't be able to survive." The display split to show the battle. Already, nearly 500 Council ships had been disabled, drifting powerless in space. "Your Council has existed for 10,000 years, Morrison continued. "In that time, you've grown comfortable, predictable. You fight wars the same way every time because it's always worked before." He leaned forward. "Humans are different. We evolved on a planet where adaptation meant survival. We've spent our entire history fighting each other, our environment, our own limitations. When we face a superior force, we don't calculate the odds of victory. We change the rules of the game." Quan stared at the human commander. "You hid inside a star. You modified your own bodies. What else have you done?" Morrison's smile widened slightly. That would be telling, Commander. Let's just say we have more surprises if needed. The tactical display updated, showing more Council ships losing power. The once mighty armada was being systematically dismantled without a single vessel being destroyed. Your Council ordered humanity to surrender, Morrison said. Our answer was a smile. Now you understand why. We weren't being arrogant. We simply knew something you didn't, that humans don't follow your rules. We never have. Quan looked at the disabled ships floating helplessly in space. The Council's greatest fleet, defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive just days ago. What do you want? Quan asked finally. For now? We want you to leave, Morrison replied. After that, we can discuss a relationship between equals, not masters and servants. As Quan considered his options, more alarms sounded throughout his ship. The humans had somehow bypassed their security systems. His own vessel was now losing power. The last thing he saw before the displays went dark was Morrison's face, still wearing that knowing smile that had started it all, the smile that said, "You never understood what humans are capable of, now you do." 1 year later, Admiral Jinha stood at the large window of the newly constructed human embassy on Centaurus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. The sprawling alien city stretched before him, its crystalline towers and gravity-defying architecture a testament to the Council's 10,000 years of technological development. Jinha straightened his formal uniform and checked his reflection in the glass. Today would mark a historic moment, the official signing of the Human Council Accord, a document that would forever change the relationship between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. Nervous? Asked Commander Harin, who stood beside him. Jinha smiled slightly. After facing down their entire fleet? This is just paperwork, but they both knew it was much more than that. The past year had been filled with intense negotiations, cultural exchanges, and careful diplomatic maneuvering. After humanity's shocking demonstration of power, the Council had withdrawn their forces and recognized Earth's sovereignty. But turning that initial agreement into a lasting peace had required months of work. The Council representatives are ready, announced Jack Morrison, who had traded his Solar Fleet Commander uniform for the formal attire of a diplomat. After his crucial role in defeating the Council Armada, Morrison had become one of humanity's key representatives in the negotiations. Jinha nodded and turned from the window. Then let's not keep them waiting. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had been redesigned for this occasion. The traditional circular table now included a new section, a place for the human delegation. It was a small change that represented something profound. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Council had accepted a new member as an equal. Not a subject. High Counselor Quan watched as the human delegation entered the chamber. He had spent the past year learning everything he could about humanity, trying to understand the species that had so thoroughly upended the galactic order. Welcome, representatives of Earth, Quan said formally as the humans took their places. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, Jinha nodded in acknowledgement. A chapter we write together as equals. The chamber was filled with representatives from all 17 Council species, plus observers from dozens of other worlds. News of humanity's stand against the Council had spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring both fear and hope among the various subject species. Before we sign the accord, Jinha said, I would like to address the Council directly. Quan gestured. For him to proceed, Jinha stood and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives of species that, until recently, had considered humans barely more than clever animals. 1 year ago, the Galactic Council ordered humanity to surrender, he began. You expected compliance because that's what you had always received? For 10,000 years, your technological and military superiority went unchallenged. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humanity's response surprised you. Not just our hidden capabilities, but our refusal to accept what seemed inevitable. You spent the past year trying to understand how we did what we did, how we hid fleets inside a star, how we hollowed out our moon without detection, how we enhanced our bodies and minds. Jinha activated a holographic display showing Earth, a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. The answer is simple. We evolved differently than you did. Most council species developed on stable worlds with predictable environments. You evolved slowly, methodically, over millions of years. Your civilizations grew in orderly progression. The display changed to show Earth's turbulent history: ice ages, continental shifts, mass extinctions. Humans evolved on a planet in constant flux. We faced extinction-level events dozens of times. We competed with other intelligent species. We survived ice ages with stone tools and animal skins. Our entire evolutionary history has been about adapting to change and overcoming impossible odds. Jinha looked directly at Quan. When you ordered us to surrender, you expected us to calculate the odds and submit. But humans don't think that way. Throughout our history, our greatest achievements came when someone looked at impossible odds and said, "We'll find a way." The chamber was silent. Every alien representative focused intently on the human admiral. The old council operated on the principle of technological superiority, Jinha continued. We propose a new foundation, adaptive resilience. Not who has the most advanced technology, but who can best respond to unknown threats. He gestured to Haran and Morrison, who activated new displays showing data from human scientific outposts at the edge of known space. There are things moving in the darkness between galaxies, Jinha said quietly. Things older and more powerful than any of our civilizations. We've detected them, we've studied them, and we believe they're waking up. Murmurs spread through the chamber as the council representatives examined the data. It showed massive energy. Signatures moving between star systems, patterns that matched no known natural phenomenon. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy, Haran said, stepping forward. We want to help protect it. The same determination that allowed us to defeat. Your invasion can be directed toward solving problems that affect us all. Quan studied the data carefully. You've known about these entities for how long? We detected the first signals 15 years ago, Morrison explained. We've been monitoring them ever since. They're still distant, but they're moving in this direction, and you believe they pose a threat? Asked the Vexery representative. Jinha nodded. We don't know what they are, but their energy signatures suggest technology far beyond anything in known space. If they are hostile, no single species could stand against them, not even humanity with all our hidden capabilities. He looked around the chamber. That's why we're here today. Not just to sign a peace treaty, but to propose a new kind of council, one where each species contributes their unique strengths toward our common defense. Quan considered this for a long moment. You could have kept this information to yourselves. Used it as leverage. That would be short-sighted, Jinha replied. Whatever's coming affects us all. Humans may be good at facing impossible odds, but we're even better at working together when it matters most. The chamber fell silent as the council representatives processed this information. The human delegation waited patiently. Finally, Quan spoke. I believe we have much to learn from each other. He stood and approached the central podium where the Human Council Accord waited. This document was meant to establish peace between our civilizations. Now I see it could be the beginning of something much more important. Jinha joined him at the podium. A partnership of equals facing the unknown together. As they signed the historic agreement, Jinha thought back to that moment 1 year ago when the Council had demanded humanity's surrender and Earth's only. Response had been a smile, not a smile of arrogance or defiance, but of recognition. The recognition that throughout human history, the phrase impossible odds had always been just another way of saying challenge accepted. Now that same spirit would be turned toward a greater purpose. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by conquering, but by refusing to be conquered. Not by being the strongest, but by being the most determined. As the signing ceremony concluded, representatives from all species approached the humans with questions, proposals, and ideas. The chamber buzzed with a new energy, the excitement of different minds coming together to solve common problems. So, Haran said quietly to Jinha, as they watched the mingling of species that had been enemies just 1 year before. Was it worth it, all those years of preparation, of secrecy? Jinha looked around at the new council, already transforming into something more dynamic, more adaptive than it had been in 10,000 years. Yes, he said. But not for the reason we expected. We prepared for war but found something better. A chance to build something that might last longer than any of our civilizations. He smiled slightly, the same smile that had once been humanity's only response to an ultimatum. But now it meant something different. It meant hope.